We're right at about 5 minutes, 228 degrees on the bean temperature. I'm going to crank the airflow up to about 30%. And you'll notice that the hot air continues to pick up. It's still close to 100-degree difference in the temperature. We're still getting a lot of chaff falling off these beans, so I'm actually going to crank it up to about 40%. We're at 6.5 minutes, 268 degrees on the bean, 344 on the airflow. I've got the drum speed at about 50%. I'm going to turn it up to about 70%. And we'll start in a moment to look at the beans, the color of the beans. Okay, we're almost 8 minutes into the roast at 296 degrees on the bean, 359 on the airflow. And we're going to start to take a look and see what coloration we're getting. We're doing the airflow at about 40% right now, which seems to be working just fine. We've kept the temperature up to 10. We may drop that back just a little bit, depending on our time. I'd like to make this roast between 12 and 15 minutes. We'll see how that works. We're 9.5 minutes into the roast, and it's turning a nice yellow. I don't know if you can see that from there, but it's proceeding quite nicely. We're at 329 on the bean temperature, 384 on the hot air. I'm going to up it now to 60% airflow, and I'm keeping the temperature at 10, and we'll take a look at it. We're right at 10 minutes. We'll take a look at it in a moment or so. We're at 10 minutes 45 seconds. The airflow is at almost 400 degrees. The bean is at about 347. I think we're starting to hear tiny little cracks, but when it gets up closer to about 380 on the beans, when we really should see a rolling crack. Yeah, I'm hearing a little bit of cracks right now. Actually, the cracks might have been fireworks. We're still at a pretty light brown right here. So the bean temperature is now up to 365. We're 11 minutes 52 seconds into the roast. The hot air temperature 408. And a lot of fireworks going off in the background due to it being the 4th of July, which kind of takes away from hearing the first crack. We're now up to 12 minutes 15 seconds. We're at 373 on the bean, 413 on the drum. A lot of coffee would have gone into first crack right now. This Colombian doesn't seem to go into first crack until you get it close to 400 degrees. Not sure how well you can see the spoon, but starting to get a nice light brown. The bean temperature is now up to 389. 13 minutes into the roast. The drum temperature 424. And I'm going to up the drum temperature to about 70%. And we are hearing first crack right now. And that's at 13 minutes 25 seconds. Drum temperature 426. Bean temperature 397. Still a real light brown. It's now starting to go into a rolling crack. Pretty quiet though. I'm hoping you can hear the rolling crack from all the outside noises and the fan from the chaff unit. But we're now at 14 minutes, almost 30 seconds, 416 on the bean, 443 on the hot air, 70% cooling, we're still at 10. My drum speed is at 70. I could probably bump that up to 80. At this point, when you bump up the drum speed, it actually helps heat faster once it gets to about first crack. Okay, let's see how we're looking. That's a city roast right there. I like to go a little darker with the Colombian. We're now at 15 minutes, 20 seconds. 432 on the bean, 454 on the hot air, 70% on the airflow, 80 on the drum speed, and it's coming along quite nicely. A lot of people would drop it at this point. I'm going to go a little bit darker. So I'm going to take it up to maybe 16 and a half minutes. It's going into a roaring roll right now. I don't know if you can see that. It's pretty good looking bean right now. At any point you could drop it. I'm going to go maybe another 15-20 seconds. We're at 16 and a half minutes. Turning on my cooling fan, cooling tray, arms. Yeah, we're about where I want it to be, pretty dark. So I'm going to cut the power, drop the beans. And normally you wouldn't see this much smoke, but my cooling tray is not exhausting outside the building. It's just exhausting in here. But that's at a really dark roast right there, which a lot of people like for Colombian. I personally don't like, but a lot of folks do. Now normally I would cut back my heat. I would turn up the hot air. I would leave these vents open for a minute just so that the temperature would begin to drop down to my drop point of close to 350. Some people go 400. And then you could close these back up. You're ready for another roast, and you should be looking good. Okay, so that's a darker roast than what I would do. It is a bit oily, but a lot of people like their roast dark and oily. I personally don't, but for some reason a lot of people like the Colombian at a dark roast. And we did that in about 16 and a half minutes. So we could have cut it out about 30 seconds sooner and got a full city plus. We would have gone about 30 seconds more. We would have been close to a French roast. Right now, the cooling tray has been on for just about 2 minutes, and it's almost completely cool to where we can drop it.